I remember being on the subway all the time. And running into brother Steve Coakley. I think he lived in Maryland or DC. Just an average brother, baseball cap, and I only knew who it was from him coming in the house of Kemet. And I would briefly build with him, or actually listen to the wisdom that he had to say on the subway and different things. And I remember he used to come in and drop his flyers off, and I know that you did, for those that may not know, and I need to be trying to convert these things and stop procrastinating to DVD. I have to check with Brother Tehuti first. But Brother Tehuti did lectures together in Washington, D.C. with Brother Steve Coakley. Some very, very powerful lectures for all of you who, talk about Christianity and stuff like that, and religion. Brother Tehuti was tearing that up back in the 90s. Dealing with Christianity and religion and all them things. So I'm thankful again, because it makes me realize how I've been advanced in that way. Many of the things that people are talking about today, I heard you teach me years ago. This is not me being facetious. It's just an absolute fact. And I thank you again for that. But talk a little bit about our brother Steve Coakley, Ashe.
Ashe, Brother Steve. Brother Steve Coakley. Brother Steve Coakley brought information to the community in a style that he called raw and uncensored. Steve wasn't cute with it. He came straight out with it. He talked to you as if you were sitting here, or there are a bunch of people sitting around in a backyard talking, not worrying about somebody listening or something being bugged. Steve Coakley originally grew up in Chicago, Illinois. He got his teeth wet in politics in Chicago. Black Democratic machine up there, and he was one of the brothers instrumental in helping to get Harold Washington elected as the mayor of the city of Chicago, Illinois. And Steve was, of course, hired by Mayor Washington somewhere in the Chicago government, but Steve was a teacher, and Steve ended up getting fired. Steve was let go because of pressure put on Harold Washington by the Chicago Jewish community. Because when Steve talked about Judaism and the behavior of the Jewish merchants of Chicago, he was raw, uncensored, and uncut, and he kept it real. But by being that way, of course, he stepped on a lot of toes, and he pissed a lot of people off, especially a lot of Jewish people. But anyway, eventually Steve made his way here to Washington, D.C., sometimes during the early 1990s, and he was lecturing. And the thing that attracted me to Steve was Steve taught me about something that I had no idea even existed, and that was this organization called the Boule. I did not know that there was a super black fraternity, male fraternity of upper class black men, quite bourgeois, that helped set the political and philosophical tone for Black America. And he exposed this group, or he taught the community about this group in a way that opened my eyes to it. But Steve was the most, Steve was a researcher. Steve would probably read 3 or 4 newspapers a day. He would cut out every magazine he could find. He went through them with a fine-tooth comb, cutting out articles. And when you came to a Steve Coakley lecture, he's showing you the information, the article and what have you, so you could go back and do research on it on your own. I wouldn't call Steve a revolutionary, but Steve had revolutionary ideas. Now, what do I mean about that? A real revolutionary is organized. Organization is the first step in revolution. Individuals can't pull off no revolution. They never have and never will, as such. But Steve Coakley, as when I say had revolutionary ideas, Steve's ideas were we needed to get behind the scenes and know what was really going on with the institutions that was controlling our lives and governing our lives. A lot of people take the book knowledge they learned in the academic institutions and accept that on the surface as if that's all the knowledge. Steve got behind that and understood there are a lot of people with a whole lot of ABs, BAs, PhDs, or what have you, all kind of letters behind their names that don't know very much. You know, like they keep pushing information that the society want people to know. In other words, to have a society, the government in and of itself controls what the members of its societies thinks the truth is. By controlling that information, the governments or the controlling forces can control what goes on for the most part in the society. Those are the kind of things that Steve Coakley pulled the covers off of. It hurt some people. Some African people got hurt because Steve exposed those people who said they were working on behalf of black folks, but were actually people who worked to control us on behalf of some other folks. And that's the kind of information Steve relayed to us. Again, a brother who left us way too soon, He left here in Washington, D.C., went out west to L.A., and helped a brother with one of the first African-centered school in the Los Angeles community. And that's where he spent the last years of his life helping that brother out there in L.A. At that school. But he was a bad dude. Like I said, I have had the fortune to sit at the feet of a lot of the brothers who were very influential in educating us. I mean, from Chancellor Williams, Doc Ben, John Henry Clark, Asa Hilliard. I mean, these are brothers I've known in my life and sat down, interacted with them, and in some cases sat in their classes, had long personal conversations with them as such. But Steve was different than they in his style, but Steve was as knowledgeable as they in the subjects that he did research on and the information that he shared with the people. If you ever get a chance, go on the internet, try to find some old Steve Coakley videos. It would be worth your time to sit down and view these videos and understand the lessons that Steve was teaching. In fact, a friend of mine told me just last year, I think that his son, someone sent him copies of all the videos they had of Steve, and that he was going to create a site online, you know, so people could see some of the messages that Steve was teaching at the time that he was with us and teaching. But he was a bad dude. I mean, one of the baddest dudes who came out to the community to teach the community what was going on. And his style, what I liked about his style, it was raw, uncensored, and uncut. If you didn't like profanity, you shouldn't don't come to a Steve Coakley lecture because some of his lecture was laced with profane words. I'll put it that way, because sometimes in order to wake somebody up out of this type of zombie-like state that we're in. I mean, we're people who appear to be alive walking around, but you're talking about the black walking dead. That's who Steve Coakley was trying to address, the walking dead, to wake them up out of that stupor that we were in at that time about what was really controlling us, who some of the people were, who some of the organizations were that set the tone to make sure that we have a limited outlook at life. I mean, a lot of you, I mean, the circle within the circle. You know, one of the things he pointed out to us, a lot of us will see the outer circle of what's going on and controlling without knowing that in the center of the circle, the inner circle where the real power is, we didn't even know it existed and who existed in that inner circle. And those are the kind of lessons that Steve taught.